The corridor is empty at 11 p.m. It is supposed to be empty. This is when the East Wing goes to overnight lighting. This is when the staff rotation ends. This is when the only person moving through the Kwon estate should be the single overnight guard, whose pattern Zara Mensah has spent 6 weeks memorizing with the particular attention of a woman who needed to know it. She has been in the archive room for 90 minutes. She should not be in the archive room. Her work assignment is the West Wing, the main hall, the kitchen corridor. The archive room is East Wing administrative, which means it is off her map. Behind a keypad she spent 3 weeks decoding and a physical lock she has been waiting to use. Tonight she used it. Now she is coming out. She closes the door with the care of someone who needs it to look exactly as it did before she touched it. She checks the corridor empty. She starts moving toward the West Wing. She is 10 feet from the door when she hears it. Take whatever you need. She stops. The voice comes from the alcove beside the archive room, the reading corner with the dark bookcase where, if you stood with your back flat to the wall, you would be invisible from the corridor until someone was 3 feet away. Kwon Minjae has been standing there for 6 minutes. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. He has seen everything. She was in the archive room and she came out holding a folder and she checked the corridor and now she is standing very still in the corridor with the folder in her hands and the understanding settling over her of exactly how thoroughly she has been caught. She does not turn around for 3 full seconds. Then she turns. Zara Mensah is 26 years old. Ghanaian, from Accra. She has been in Seoul for 2 years and she is a professional domestic worker in the same way that Gabriella Collins was a professional waitress, meaning it is the job she does and she is very good at it, and it is not the whole of what she is. What she actually is cannot be found in any placement agency file. She researches disappearances, specifically the category of disappearance that happens at the edges of powerful men's lives, where the power makes investigation inconvenient and the women involved don't have the weight to push back. She works for a small organization that places researchers inside households. They gather information. They build cases. They give them to the people who can actually do something. She has done this 4 times before the Kwon estate. She is here because of a woman named Lee Soo-jin, 23 years old, who disappeared from Seoul 11 months ago. Lee Soo-jin worked at a hospitality venue connected to Kwon Minjae's organization. She was last seen leaving that venue. The Seoul Metropolitan Police reviewed the case and filed it as unresolved, which is the institutional way of saying no one powerful enough wanted it solved. Zara has a placement letter, a gray uniform, a clean background check, and a lockpick she has been waiting to use. She arrives at the gate on a Monday morning in September. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Choi, meets her at the service entrance with the efficiency of a woman who has seen many new staff members and assesses them quickly. West Wing, main hall, kitchen corridor, Mrs. Choi says. You don't go to the East Wing administrative section without a specific request. Uniform in your room. You start tomorrow. Understood, Zara says. Is there a preferred system for the silver? Or does the current one work? Mrs. Choi gives her the 4-second look. The current system works. Then I'll learn it. Mrs. Choi nods once. Zara goes to her room. She unpacks 2 bags, which is exactly what she arrived with, which is exactly what she will leave with. She opens a notebook and writes, Day 1. She learns the estate the way she learns everything, methodically without drawing attention to the learning. She maps the corridors in 4 days. She learns the guard rotation in 2 weeks, 3 guards on days, 1 on nights, rotation at midnight, gap between 11 p.m. and the midnight changeover where the East Wing is uncovered for approximately 8 minutes. She learns the staff ecosystem. Who talks to whom, who keeps their head down, who knows more than their job title suggests. She sees Kwon Minjae 3 times in the first 6 weeks. The first, crossing the main hall on a Tuesday, phone to his ear, moving with the focused economy of someone who does not waste steps. He does not look at her. The second, at the far end of the kitchen corridor, speaking to Mrs. Choi, back to Zara. She notes the particular quality of how he stands, the stillness of someone who is listening to everything, not just the person talking. The third, in the main hall again, this time walking toward her. She is polishing the side table. He slows fractionally, not because she is in his way, because something about the way she is working has caught his attention. He passes without speaking. She does not look up. In week 4, she finds the first piece. It is not in the archive. It is in the household digital records, which Mrs. Choi uses for scheduling and inventory, and which Zara accesses during her regular administrative tasks because it is part of her job. A name in the catering records, Lee Soo-jin, logged as a vendor contact for a private event 11 months ago. She photographs it. She keeps working. In week 6, she hears something she is not supposed to hear. 2 of the estate's secondary staff in the garden, speaking carefully. The other property in Namyangju, the one Mr. Kwon manages privately. Not in any public record. A secondary residence that exists only in the knowledge of people who work here. She adds it to the notebook. She keeps working. In week 8, she is ready. She goes in at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday. The guard leaves at 9:28. She has 11 minutes before he circles back. The keypad sequence took her 3 weeks to decode through observation. Not as dramatic as it sounds, mostly a matter of watching which sections of the pad were most worn. Then refining the sequence by listening during Mrs. Choi's rare administrative visits. The physical lock took 1 attempt. Inside, what she expected. Financial records, legal documents, operational paperwork. She moves quickly, not frantically, the practiced speed of someone who has done this before and knows that speed without care creates more problems than care without speed. She is looking for 3 things: Lee Soo-jin's name, the Namyangju property, anything connecting them. She finds a property deed. The Namyangju secondary residence, registered through a holding company, signed 11 months ago. She photographs it. She is about to put it back when she sees the margin notation. 2 Korean characters, handwritten. A date. 11 months ago. 11 months is when Lee Soo-jin disappeared.
She photographs it. She replaces the folder exactly as she found it. She closes the archive room. She comes out into the corridor. She thinks she is alone. She is not. 3 seconds of standing still in the corridor, folder in hand. She is not frozen. She is running the accounting. What he saw, how long he was there, what the folder in her hands proves and what it implies, and what he will do with the gap between those 2 things. She is good at this kind of accounting. She has been in households where the cover developed cracks, and she had to decide, in real time, whether to hold it or let it go. The cover holds when holding it is still useful, when it can still protect the work. She looks at the situation clearly. He was here before she came out. He watched her exit the archive room. He saw the folder. He knows the keypad was operated, which means he knows someone spent weeks watching the sequence, which means the cover has not just cracked, it has dissolved. Holding it protects nothing. She turns around. Kwon Minjae is 41 years old. She has seen him at a distance 6 times in 8 weeks. Up close, in the dim corridor light, he is not what the briefing document described. The document said, primarily financial actor, assessed as motivated by profit. The man in front of her is looking at her with the expression of someone who has been watching something and has decided that whatever he was watching is not what he thought it was. He is not threatening. He is curious. She holds the folder. She does not try to hide it. Who are you? He says. Not a question. The statement of someone who already knows the answer isn't what's on the placement letter. My name is Zara Mensah, she says. I've been here for 8 weeks. I clean the West Wing. That's your job here. I asked who you are. She looks at him for a long moment. I research disappearances, she says. The kind that happen at the edges of powerful men's households and don't get investigated because investigating them is inconvenient. I'm here because of a woman named Lee Soo-jin who disappeared 11 months ago from a venue connected to your organization. The corridor is very quiet. Kwon Minjae looks at her. She's alive, he says. The words arrive with a specific force of information that changes the shape of everything around it. Zara is very still. Where, she says. Namyangju, the secondary property. She has been there for 8 months. Why? He looks at her the way someone looks when they are deciding how much of a long story fits into a short space. Her brother worked for me, he says. Lee Junseo. He resigned 14 months ago and took information with him, not about my finances, not about my operations, about people under my protection. A faction that has been working against me found out he had it. They were going to use Lee Soo-jin to retrieve it. She didn't know what she was carrying. What information? Names and locations. Of people who are safe, because those names and locations are not known. A pause. One of those people, if exposed, dies within the week. Zara is watching him the way she watches everything, looking for the places where a story doesn't hold together. For the micro-tells of something constructed rather than real. The story holds together. More than that, it has the specific weight of something a person has been carrying alone for a long time. Lee Soo-jin is there voluntarily, he says. Not initially. For the first 2 months she was there because I had no other option. For the last 6, she is there because I explained the situation and she understood. Can I verify that? Tomorrow. And the person you're protecting is alive because Lee Soo-jin stayed. Zara looks at the folder in her hands. The deed. The handwritten date. The notation in the margin. The date. Is when she arrived. I wrote it. He meets her eyes. I know what it looks like. I have known what it looks like for 8 months. I've been trying to solve the actual problem before it became necessary to explain the appearance. Which is why you haven't told anyone. Which is why I haven't told anyone. A pause. Until now. She looks at him. Who is she? The person you're protecting. He is quiet for a moment. That is a longer conversation. Tonight I can tell you that she worked for the faction for 3 years before she chose to leave, and the leaving required my help, and my help required her staying hidden. And Lee Soo-jin's brother found the edge of that. Without knowing what he had found. A pause.
He is not a bad man.
He made a specific mistake with consequences he couldn't have anticipated. And you didn't punish him for it. No. She considers this. What do you need from me? He looks at her with the expression she has been watching from across the estate for 8 weeks, the particular attention of someone who is looking at a problem and seeing, possibly, that the problem is also a solution. The faction uses a courier network to move information, he says. I need to identify the current active carrier before a transfer happens. After that, the danger to the person I'm protecting is neutralized. Lee Soo-jin comes home. Junseo can come forward. A pause. My own methods for finding the carrier would trigger a flag. An external researcher with access to sources outside the faction's monitoring framework could find it without alerting them. Yes. She looks at the corridor around them. The estate is quiet and asleep. Your organization tracks these networks, he says. You've produced documentation on faction infrastructure. I've read 3 of your case outputs without knowing they were yours until tonight. She looks at him. You've read our outputs. I've been looking for someone like you for 6 months. A pause. I didn't know what I was looking for until you walked out of my archive room. She does not tell him everything. She tells him the function of her organization, not its name. She tells him about Lee Soo-jin's case file, how it arrived, who filed it. She tells him about her research, the catering record, the secondary property, the 8 weeks of patience and observation. He listens the way she has observed him listening, completely, without constructing a response in parallel, letting what she says arrive before he decides what to do with it. They are in the kitchen, which at midnight has the specific quality of a space between 2 days, the household fully at rest, the low glow of the range hood, Seoul outside the windows doing its indifferent continuous thing. The deed notation, she says. Without context, it connects the property to her disappearance date. That is what I was going to document. I know. To a prosecutor. Someone who has been building a case adjacent to the faction you're describing, though they don't know that's what they have. He looks at her. Which prosecutor? She tells him. He is quiet for a moment. Then, she's been working on the financial infrastructure. She hasn't been able to place the operational layer. The courier network would give her the operational layer.
Yes. He looks at his tea. How long? To find the courier? 3 weeks. Maybe less. I need it in 3 weeks. The faction's timeline has a specific endpoint and I need to move before they reach it. She nods. She looks at the tea she hasn't touched. You said you've been looking for someone like me for 6 months. Why didn't you use your own resources? I did. 3 researchers over 4 months. A pause. None of them were you. She looks at him. The professional architecture she maintains in these situations, the careful distance, the operational neutrality is present, but it is noting something. The specific quality of what he says next. You came in as a maid, he says. Spent 8 weeks doing the job impeccably while building a security map of my estate. Decoded a keypad through observation alone. And in 90 minutes in my archive room found the one document that looks the worst without the context I am now providing. He holds her gaze. That is not a skill set you develop in a placement agency. No, she says. It isn't. How did you come to this work? She is quiet for a moment. She has a rule about this. She does not discuss personal stakes in active cases. Personal stakes make you careless. But it is midnight, and this man just stood in a shadow for 6 minutes waiting to see what she would do, and said take whatever you need instead of everything else he could have said, and she is tired of the rule right now. My sister, she says. Something similar happened to her. Different country, different circumstances. The official channels said there was insufficient evidence. I found other channels. She looks at the tea. She came home. The person who took her is serving 12 years. I built the case. He is very still. That's when you started this work. Yes. The kitchen holds its midnight quiet around them. Lee Soo-jin is going to come home, he says. Whatever else happens, that is the outcome of this. She looks at him. You're telling me because you want me to know it's real. I'm telling you because you deserve to know it's real. A pause. You've been in this household for 8 weeks carrying a case about a woman you've never met because someone needed to. You deserve to know it ends the right way. She looks at the tea. She picks it up. She takes a drink. I'll need access to your documentation on the faction, she says. Everything. Not what you've chosen to share tonight, everything. Done. And Lee Soo-jin needs to contact her family. Not her location. That she's alive. I'll arrange it. He looks at her. What else? She considers. I'll need a secure channel to contact my organization. They need to authorize the collaboration. Use the estate's secure line. I'll have it routed through a server they won't be able to trace back here. She looks at him. You already have a protocol for this. I prepared for the possibility that someone would eventually find what you found. A pause. I didn't prepare for the person finding it to be useful. She almost smiles. She does not. Tomorrow, she says. I want to see Lee Soo-jin. 7 a.m. I'll have a car ready. She stands. She carries her tea to the sink. She rinses it. She sets it on the rack. Zara, he says. She turns. It is the first time he has used her name. The whisper, he says. In the corridor. Before you turned around. She looks at him. You said, don't tell him I was here. His expression has not changed. It is, if anything, more careful than before. You thought you were alone. You said it to no one. She does not say anything. What were you afraid of losing? He says. Not the case. You'd calculated the case. What were you actually afraid of? She looks at him for a long time. I'll see Lee Soo-jin tomorrow, she says. Good night. She goes back to the West Wing. She lies in the dark in the room she has occupied for 8 weeks and thinks about that question for a long time. Lee Soo-jin meets them at the door of the secondary property, which is a converted farmhouse 40 minutes east of Seoul, maintained and quiet, the specific quiet of a place that has been taken care of without being performed. She is 24 now. She has the quality of someone who has had 8 months to be afraid and has come through it into something harder and more decided. She looks at Zara with the expression of someone who has been waiting for a person from the outside world to appear. He said you've been investigating, Lee Soo-jin says. Yes. He told you I'm here voluntarily. Yes. It's true. A pause. I didn't understand at first. For the first 2 months I thought he was keeping me here for his own reasons. He explained everything. Every time I needed to understand it again, he explained it again. She looks at Kwon Minjae briefly, then back at Zara. Men who are lying don't keep explaining. They give you one answer and then they stop answering. Zara files this. She spends 2 hours asking Lee Soo-jin every question she asks any witness. verifying the timeline, the brother's account, the sequence of events. Looking for the places where the story doesn't hold. The story holds. In the car going back to Seoul, she says, "The person you're protecting. The faction worked against them because of what they know." "Yes. You've been doing this for 4 years." "Yes." "Who is she?" He is quiet. "My sister." Zara absorbs this. "She worked for the faction," Zara says, "for 3 years. She didn't understand what she was working for until she was already inside it. By the time she did, she couldn't leave without being killed." A pause. "I spent 2 years getting her out. 4 years keeping her out. And the cost of that is what your organization looks like from the outside." "Part of the cost, yes." She looks out the window. Seoul is accumulating on the horizon. The faction knows you're protecting someone. They know protection exists. They don't know who. Lee Soo-jin's brother found the edge of it. The edge, yes. He thought he was doing something unrelated. A pause. "He is a good man who made a specific mistake in a situation he didn't have enough information to fully understand. I don't punish people for that category of mistake." She is quiet. Then, "The briefing document I had on you, before I arrived. What did it say?" "Financial actor. Legitimate enterprises with criminal connections. No direct involvement in violence. Motivated by profit." "That's accurate as far as it goes." "It doesn't go far enough." She looks at him. "You think in 5 circles. Most men in your position think in 2. He is looking at the road. "What are the 5? The operation. The people inside the operation. The people connected to the operation. The people at the edges who don't know they're connected. And the people who would be affected if the wrong thing happened." A pause. "Most men stop at 2. He doesn't say anything for a moment. "What's the 6th? She looks at him. "You said 5, he says. "I think there's a 6th. She looks back at the road. "The person you can't protect because you're too close to the situation to see what they need."
The car is quiet for the rest of the drive. She stays in the household. Not because the cover requires it. The cover is gone. Mrs. Choi has been told Zara's role has changed, that she is now working on a specific project for Kwon Minjae, that her duties are adjusted accordingly. Mrs. Choi receives this information with a 4-second look and moves on. Zara stays because the work requires proximity to his documentation, and the work matters, and the work is what she is here to do. Her organization's authorization comes back in 48 hours. Proceed. Update weekly. Confirm voluntary status of subject. She confirms. She proceeds. He gives her access to everything. 8 months of documentation on the faction, financial infrastructure, known contacts, operational patterns, communication methods. The kind of research that took her organization years to develop on unrelated cases, here assembled by a single man operating without the institutional backing her organization provides. "You built this yourself," she says, the second evening, in the library where they have established a working pattern without discussing it. "Over 8 months. You have 3 people on your security team with research backgrounds. Why didn't you use them?" "Because the faction monitors my organization's information ecosystem. Anything my people find gets flagged. I needed sources they couldn't see." "Which is why you needed someone external." "Yes." She looks at the documentation. "You did good work. The financial layer is thorough. The operational layer is where I couldn't get traction. The courier network doesn't exist in any of the financial records. It's completely off-book. That's the design." She pulls up something on her laptop. Courier networks like this use human infrastructure, no digital trace. The way to find them is to find the people, not the communications. And the people are in your financial documentation, actually. She turns the laptop to show him. 3 of the front companies you identified. I ran them against a database my organization maintains of known faction-adjacent personnel. There's an overlap. 1 person appears in 2 of the 3 front companies with different job titles that don't match their actual function. He leans forward, reads what she shows him. "A logistics coordinator," he says. "In Mapogu. I've confirmed 2 previous transfers through their pattern. This is the 2nd relay in the network. And the 3rd. I need 2 more days. But I think it's someone at a consulate. He looks at her. He has the expression she has been noticing since the first evening in the kitchen, the specific look of a man who is looking at something and understanding that it is more than what he expected. You did in 3 days what I couldn't do in 8 months, he says. You didn't have the overlapping database. I could have built one. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. You had other things to manage. She closes the laptop. What made you not destroy the evidence when you found it? The deed, the notation. You knew it looked bad. Because destroying evidence in case it's needed later is something I don't do. He looks at her steadily. I have made a specific decision about the kind of operations I run. Some things are off the table regardless of consequence. And hiding a missing woman in your secondary property. She is not hidden. She is protected. The distinction matters to me even if it doesn't look like it from the outside. She looks at him. Why does the distinction matter to you? Because I have watched what happens to men who stop making that distinction. A pause. They become something I don't want to be. The library is quiet. The sole evening outside the windows, indifferent and continuous. Your father built this organization, she says. Yes. And when he died you inherited it. Yes. Did you want it? A pause. The pause of something that has a real answer, that is not simple. I wanted what it protected. I didn't want what it cost to protect it. He looks at his documents. I've spent 11 years trying to figure out which parts of the cost are necessary and which parts one took on because they were already there. Have you figured it out? Some of it. She looks at the documentation spread between them. 8 months of one person's careful, solitary work. You've been doing this alone, she says. Not the organization. This specific thing. Yes. Why didn't you tell anyone? In the organization. Someone you trust. Because telling someone means they are now carrying it. And anyone carrying it is a risk to my sister's location. He meets her eyes. I don't put people in danger without their knowledge. She is quiet for a long moment. That's why Lee Soo-ji knows, she says. She's in danger anyway, so she deserves to know why. Yes. And that's why you told me. Because I was already in it. You walked into my archive room. You were already in it. A pause. And because you asked the right questions in the right order, which told me you could receive the right answers. She looks at the laptop. She looks at the documentation. She looks at the man across the library table who has been managing an 11-month operation alone with the specific discipline of someone who decided long ago that visibility is liability and has been paying the cost of that decision every day. Find out who's at the consulate, he says. I'll have everything you need. I know, she says. She does not say, I notice you've been in this library every evening this week, and some of those evenings you were finished with the documents an hour before you left. She does not say, I noticed that the coffee in the East Wing break room changed in week 2 to the specific variety I mentioned preferring in a casual conversation with Mrs. Choi. She does not say, you stood when I came into the library that first evening. You stand when I leave. I don't think you notice you're doing it. She does not say any of these things because she is a professional in the middle of a case, and the case is not finished, and professional and not finished are the two conditions under which she has learned, from the specific cost of learning it, not to say the things she notices. What she says on day 17 is, I found the courier. It is 9 p.m. They are in the library. He looks up from his documents. Cultural attaché. At a consulate in central Seoul. They've been using diplomatic status to move documents across a border on a timeline that matches 6 previous faction transfers. I can document 4 of them with what I have. 4 is enough. 6 is better. I need 3 more days. You have 3 days. He looks at her. The faction's timeline. How close are they? 2 weeks, maybe 3. The carrier hasn't received the package yet. It's still with the second relay. So we have time. We have time. He puts his pen down. He looks at the work between them. When this is over, when Lee Soo-jin comes home and my sister's location is secure and the documentation goes to the prosecutor, you leave. Yes. The placement ends. Is that the plan? It's the structure. She meets his eyes. The placement is a cover for the research. When the research is complete, the placement is over. And the researcher goes to the next case. The library is quiet. What was the whisper about, he says. In the corridor. The real answer. She has been thinking about this question for 17 days. She has been thinking about it the way you think about something you know the answer to and are not ready to say. I had been in this household for 8 weeks, she says carefully. And the household had become something I didn't expect it to be. The work was good. The case was real. And there were other things that I had been noticing and not naming. A pause. The whisper was about not wanting to lose what I hadn't named yet. He looks at her. That's the honest version, she says. The professional version is that I was afraid of losing case access. The professional version is incomplete. Yes. The library is quiet for a long time. 3 more days, he says finally. Then I want to have a different conversation. What kind of conversation? The kind we haven't been having. She looks at her laptop. She looks at his documents. She looks at the library that has become, over 17 evenings, the place where the day ends and the work shifts from professional to something else that neither of them has named yet. 3 days, she says. The courier is fully documented on day 19. The transfer is preempted. The factions carrier is under surveillance. The second relay is identified. The prosecutor receives the documentation package, and within 48 hours her investigation has the operational layer it was missing. The faction's infrastructure, built over years, begins to develop the specific fragility of something that has been found. On day 23, Kwon Minjae's sister moves to a new location that cannot be traced. On day 25, Lee Soo-jin calls her mother for the first time in 11 months. Zara is in the library when she gets the confirmation. Not from him, from her organization's contact. Subject has returned home. Family notified. She reads it twice. She sits with it for a long time. Then she opens the next document and keeps working. He finds her there at 8 p.m. Lee Soo-jin called her family this morning, he says. I know. I got confirmation. He sits across from her. He doesn't open any documents. You've been working since 7 a.m., he says. The prosecutor's team has questions about the timeline documentation. I'm building the supporting record. That can wait until tomorrow. She looks at her laptop. She looks at him. I leave in 4 days. I know. The placement is over when the case closes. The case is closed. I know. I'm working on the supporting documentation because it matters that the case survives scrutiny, and I'm the person who built it, and I want to make sure it holds. That's why you're working at 8 p.m. She looks at the laptop. That's most of why. What's the rest? She closes the laptop. 17 days ago you asked me what the whisper was really about, she says. I gave you the honest version, and then I said 3 days. 3 days became 19, because the case needed 19. Yes. The conversation you said you wanted to have. The different one. Yes. I've been thinking about it for 19 days. I know. She looks at him. You said I found someone worth restructuring for. I wasn't supposed to hear that. It was in a phone call. The library door was open. But I heard it. He is very still. You said it about me. Yes. You restructured how your organization processes documentation because of how I work. Yes. That's a significant structural change for a person you've known for 19 days. 17 professional days, he says. And 2 evenings in the kitchen. And 19 evenings in this library, several of which had nothing to do with the case. She looks at her hands. The hands that picked a lock and spent 90 minutes in an archive room and photographed a deed and built a documentation package that ended with a woman coming home. I have a rule, she says, about personal stakes in active cases. I've broken it twice in my career. Both times it cost the case. The case is closed. I know. So the rule. The rule no longer applies. Yes. She looks at him. That's not why I'm hesitating. Why are you hesitating? Because I leave in 4 days, she says. And you have an organization that operates in Seoul, and I have a methodology that requires moving, and those two things don't fit together in a simple way. No, he agrees. They don't. And I have learned, at considerable personal cost, not to make decisions about complicated things based on 17 evenings in a library. What have 17 evenings in a library taught you? She is quiet for a long time. That you explain things, she says. Every time someone needs to understand something, you explain it again. Lee Soo-jin told me that. I've watched it myself. A pause. That you restructure your operations when something is worth restructuring for, and you don't frame it as a concession. That you stand when I come into the room, and you don't notice you're doing it. She looks at him. That you carry things alone because you don't want to put people in danger without their knowledge, and the cost of that is that you have been genuinely alone with this for 8 months. He doesn't say anything. That's what 17 evenings taught me, she says. And what I haven't said is that the whisper, don't tell him I was here. I wasn't afraid of losing case access. I was afraid of this. She gestures at the space between them, the library, the documents, everything that has accumulated in the last 19 days. Specifically, this. And now, he says. I'm still afraid of it, she says. But I'm more afraid of not saying anything about it before I leave. He looks at her for a long time. For days, he says. For days. What would you do with them? She looks at him. Ask the questions I've been not asking. Get the direct versions of things I've been reading between the lines. And after 4 days, I go to the next case. A pause. And I come back. When the case is closed, she meets his eyes. The work doesn't stop. It's who I am. You said you restructure for things worth restructuring. I don't stop for anything. I know. You know. I've read your case files. All 5 of them, not 3. The methodology is you, not the organization. You. He holds her gaze. I don't want you to stop. She is quiet. That's a significant thing to say to someone you've known for 19 days. 17 professional, he says. I've been adjusting the count. She almost smiles. It arrives. It is the first time in 19 days she has smiled at him the way she means it. Not the professional smile, not the managed expression. The real version. He is very still. Tomorrow evening, she says. The same library. The direct versions. Yes, he says. She does not romanticize what happens in the next 4 days. It is not the kind of story that announces itself. It is conversations in a library that go until midnight, and 2 evenings in the kitchen eating the food the cook left rather than going to the formal dining room, because neither of them wants the formality, and 1 afternoon walking the estate grounds in December, because she has been inside for 8 weeks, and he offers to show her the garden, and she says yes. She asks, why the organization, why the connections, what it cost him, what he's trying to build from the parts that are worth keeping. He answers. She notices that when he answers, he gives the complete answer. Not the answer that makes him look best. Not the answer that protects his position. The actual answer, with the parts that are complicated still attached. She tells him about the cases. 5 placements in 2 years. What she learned about the specific category of person who disappears at the edges of powerful men's lives, and why that category is disproportionately women, and what she has been able to do about it. He asks, what does she do between cases? She says, she has been asking herself that question. He says, there is a library here. She looks at him. I know, she says. I've noticed. On the last evening, the 4th one, she is in the library at 10 p.m., and he comes in not with documents but with 2 cups of tea, and he sits across from her and puts one in front of her and doesn't say anything for a while. I wrote something, he says finally. He has a card. Cream stock, the kind of paper selected rather than grabbed. He puts it on the table between them and does not push it toward her. She picks it up. 4 Korean characters. She reads them. She reads them again. When did you write this? She says. 3 days ago. Before the direct conversations. Yes. So, you had the answer before you asked the question. The question was whether you had the same answer. He looks at her steadily. Do you? She looks at the card. 4 characters. She knows Korean. She has spent 2 years in Seoul. She speaks it, reads it, has translated it in professional contexts. She knows what the construction means. She knows which word he chose and why that word, and not the safer one. I came back to the library every evening, she says. That's my answer. That's circumstantial. I'm a researcher. I deal in evidence. She sets the card down. The evidence is that I came back every evening. That I asked you questions that had nothing to do with the case. That I told you about my sister, which I don't tell people. She looks at him. That's not circumstantial. That's a pattern. And the interpretation of the pattern. She looks at him for a long time. At the still quality of him that she has been reading for 19 days, the specific way he occupies a room, present without demanding, attentive without performing, there without requiring you to acknowledge that he is there. Yes, she says. The same answer. He looks at her the way he looks at things when he has understood them fully, the complete, unhurried attention of someone who is not done yet. You leave tomorrow, he says. Yes. The next case. There will be a next case. There's always a next case. And when it closes, I said I come back. She meets his eyes. I don't say things I don't mean. I know. He looks at the card between them. Neither do I. She packs in the morning the way she packed in 2 bags, exactly what she arrived with. Nothing from the household. Nothing that belongs to the placement. She keeps the card. Mrs. Choi is in the kitchen. Zara sets her key on the counter. Your work was good, Mrs. Choi says. Both kinds. Zara looks at her. I've been running households for 30 years, Mrs. Choi says. I know what it looks like when someone is doing 2 jobs. A pause. The West Wing silver is better organized than it was before you came. That's the only comment I have. Thank you, Zara says. She collects her bags at the service entrance. She stands at the door. Kwon Minjae is in the corridor, not blocking it, standing in it, present and still, the specific quality she has spent 19 evenings learning. He has something in his hand. An envelope. The gate code, he says. For when you come back. Whichever case it is, whenever it closes. The code will be the same. She takes the envelope. Inside, 4 digits. And below them, his private number. You gave me your private number, she says. You have my archive room access code. A phone number is a reasonable next step. She almost laughs. She holds it. Lee Sujin is home, she says. She called her mother again this morning. A pause. Her mother cried for 40 minutes. Zara looks at her hands. The hands that built the case. Your sister. Safe. New location. The faction has no thread to follow. The courier network is documented. The prosecutor has what she needs. Yes. She looks at him. The specific quality of a completed thing, the weight of it. Good, she says. Yes. She puts the envelope in her bag. She picks up both bags. She walks to the gate. At the gate, she turns back. He is standing at the estate entrance, watching her leave, with the quality of attention that does not require her to perform anything in return. He is simply watching because she is worth watching, and he is not making that more complicated than it is. She raises her hand once. Not a wave. An acknowledgement. He raises his once in return. She goes through the gate. She said she would come back when the case closed. The case closes in 4 weeks. She stands at the Kwon Estate gate on a Tuesday evening in December and types the code from the envelope. The gate opens. She walks up the path. The same path she walked on a Monday morning in September with a placement letter and a lockpick and a notebook that said Day 1 on the first page. She knocks on the door. Not the service entrance. The main door. Kwon Minjae opens it. For weeks, he says. The case closed early. I know. I heard. Something that is not quite a smile, but is adjacent to it. Come in.
She comes in.
In the entry hall, a card on the side table. Cream stock. Her name on the front. I was going to send it next week, he says. If you didn't come back first. She picks it up. Opens it. 4 Korean words. She reads them. She looks up. You wrote this while I was gone, she says. I wrote it the morning you left. She holds the card. She looks at him. The stillness of him, the specific quality she has been thinking about for 4 weeks and 1 day. I knocked on the gate, she says. That means I came back on purpose. I know. So you had your answer before you gave me the card. I wanted you to have it anyway. He holds her gaze. Some things deserve to be said in writing. So they exist somewhere outside the person saying them. She puts the card in her pocket, next to the gate code. I'm going to need a workspace, she says. I have a library. I know. I've worked in it for 19 evenings. Then you know where it is. I do. She looks at him. The next case starts in 3 weeks. I'll be here for the duration before it. And I'll come back after. I know. You know. The work is who you are. Stopping it would mean someone else doing it, and someone else doing it means it gets worse. He looks at her steadily. I don't want you to be someone else. She is standing in the entryway of a house she spent 8 weeks in as a maid and 1 week in as herself, and the man in front of her stood in a shadow for 6 minutes waiting to see what she would do and said take whatever you need instead of any of the other things available to someone with his resources and her exposure. Direct version, she says. Yes. I came back in 4 weeks instead of when I said. I noticed. That's my direct version, she says. You already have a card. What's yours? He looks at her for a long moment. The managed stillness, the professional composure of a man who has decided that visibility is liability, gives way to something she has only seen in fragments. In the kitchen at midnight, in the library at 10 p.m., in the moment she turned around in the corridor, and he said take whatever you need. The full version, not a fragment. Stay, he says. Not for the case. Not for the library. For the evenings after the case, and before the next one. For the parts that aren't the work. She looks at him. I told you I come back, she says. I meant the staying part too. He holds the door open. She comes in. The gate closes behind her. She came to this estate with a placement letter and a lockpick and a notebook that said day 1. She came because a woman named Lee Soo-jin had disappeared and no one with the right weight was looking, and she had learned, at the specific cost of her sister's 14 months and her own rebuilt life, that someone needed to look. She came as a maid. She cleaned the West Wing and the main hall and the kitchen corridor for 8 weeks. She was impeccably professional. She did 2 jobs at once and let only one of them be visible. On the 8th Thursday evening, she opened a lock she had been waiting to use, spent 90 minutes in an archive room, and came out thinking she was alone. She was not alone. He had been standing in a shadow for 6 minutes. He had heard the accounting she ran in the 3 seconds before she turned around. He had heard the thing she said when she thought no one was listening. Don't tell him I was here. The whisper to no one, to the specific hope that whatever the household had become could remain unwitnessed. He heard it. And instead of threat, instead of leverage, instead of any of the options available to a man in his position when a woman is caught in his archive room at 11 p.m. Take whatever you need. The permission of someone who has already decided that what you are fully, without the managed version, without the cover, is worth receiving. Lee Soo-jin came home. His sister is safe. The faction's operational layer is documented and moving toward prosecution. And Zara Mensah typed a gate code on a Tuesday evening in December and knocked on the main door instead of the service entrance because she had spent 4 weeks on a different case and she was done performing patience, she didn't feel. She said she would come back when the case closed. She came back in 4 weeks. That is the direct version. He wrote the card the morning she left. He was going to send it if she didn't come back first. She came back first. 1 corridor. 1 shadow. 1 whisper that was not for him, that he heard anyway, that told him more than she knew she was saying. And then 31 days of evenings in a library, working side by side on something that mattered, building the kind of trust that doesn't come from the right circumstances, but from 2 people who are separately and together committed to honesty in a world that mostly isn't. She came back. That was always going to be the ending. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.